Your identity is not rooted when you're winning, and your identity is not rooted when you're not winning. Are you that chick or not, right? Are you that chick because there's money in the bank, or are you that chick because that's who you were born to be, right? There's a difference. The money goes up and down, but if your identity goes up and down with it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then you have this cascading effect of negative results. Hey, Courtney Sanders here. Welcome back to my podcast. If you are listening to this on iTunes or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, you can come on over to my YouTube channel if you want to watch me and my crazy facial expressions. And if you're watching this here on YouTube, just going to warn you, this is going to be a slightly longer one than my little 10-minute pithy episodes, because I'm actually really inspired based on a conversation that I just had with a friend. And I was like, you know what? Everything that I was sharing with her, I was like, I need to do a podcast on this. So I actually just got off the phone with a friend of mine who is kind of dealing with a dip, in her business. And, I feel very fortunate that my friends feel comfortable, coming to me, not just to share about the things that are going on, but really to get that mindset shift that they need. And just as a side note, this is really encouraging to me because, and I'll talk about this in another episode. In fact, you can check out my CEO series where I often talk about what's going on in my business and kind of what I'm personally working through versus just, tips and tricks that you need in order to be successful. But one thing that I am shifting into in my business is kind of going back to a lot of the life coaching topics, because those are really, really important. So, over the years, people have watched me grow my business and they've come to me for like business coaching strategy. How do I grow my business? How do I do all these things? But I am finding that I am often giving a lot of life coaching advice because that mindset shift is so important in order to grow your business. People think it's just, what do I need to do? How do I set up a Facebook ad? Should I do a Facebook group? What do I post on Instagram? Whatever. And then we end up having a conversation around mindset. So anyway, I feel very fortunate that in addition to my friends coming to me wanting to run, business strategy by me, more and more they're coming to me for actual like mindset advice and kind of like life coaching advice, which is what I originally started my business in, which makes me super happy because I love the personal development world. And at the end of the day, I got into this to be a better person, right? Not just to make more money or to be financially successful, but ultimately to live out my purpose and to be the best person that I can be. And I really love helping people grow their businesses because oftentimes it's the best personal development, course, so to speak. Entrepreneurship is the best personal development course that any of us will take. So anyway, I was having this conversation with my friend, and we actually didn't talk about business strategy at all in terms of what she needed to do in order to turn her finances around and to get more money in the door. But instead, we talked about the mindset shifts that she needed to have. And so I realized that her central issue, again, was not lack of sales. It was not lack of interest from clients or anything like that. It was, at the time, her inability to control her mind, right? And so our entire conversation was around me essentially reminding her different ways that she can gain the mental upper hand and gain mental discipline. And because I was giving her all these strategies, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna come on this podcast and give these same strategies to you. And so it's so important. There's a very, catchy phrase going around, thoughts become things, right? And so oftentimes people say that from like this medical, physical, like, oh, if I just think the thing in the universe, then, this thing is going to happen, right? And I don't believe that. Thank goodness, right? We cannot control the universe with our thoughts because most of us are mentally undisciplined, just being real, right? Even people who think that they, have a handle on this, the amount of thoughts that we think on a daily basis is just crazy, right? I know there's a lot of studies around all the negative thoughts that people have. And so I am grateful to God, right? That he didn't build his universe where, it depends on humans being perfectly disciplined in their mentality in order to create the things that we want to create in this world, because this world is already a mess, but it would be an even greater mess because most people walk around mentally undisciplined. So when I'm talking about thoughts becoming things, I'm not talking about it from a metaphysical standpoint as much as I'm talking about it from the standpoint of the things that you think within yourself are going to influence the behavior that you take. It's going to influence how you see the world. And again, how you see the world, how you see yourself is going to influence the things you do or don't do. And it's often that behavior that then either contributes to the results that we don't want or makes us not get the results that we do want. And it's all rooted in our thoughts and all rooted in how we see ourselves. And so the first thing that I was really getting on my friend about was choosing the identity, right? So that's the first mental discipline that you really want to master if you want to achieve success, not just in your business, but in your life. When we talk about mental discipline, the first thing you need to do is you need to absolutely choose your identity based on the success that you see and not the circumstances that you are presently in. I feel like I have to do a whole training on this. I probably will, right? I'm working on some new courses and some new programs in my own business. And this is something that I keep coming back to even as a module. And a lot of the trainings that I've been creating, which is assigned to me, that I need to go ahead and just make this a full training. But I am often amazed at how wishy-washy people's identity is, right? Like they only see themselves as a success if their circumstances are successful. And so the moment those circumstances start to falter, then they don't see them as a success anymore. And so this is what I was saying to my friend. I'm like, part of the reason why you're not seeing the clients, right? Why things have started to slow down, while you were the golden child and now all of the opportunities and, you're putting things out there and people aren't responding back. Part of the reason why that is happening is because you're buying into all of this false evidence around you that says you are not that chick, right? You guys know that I have this thing about being that girl, being that chick, being that woman, especially as a woman entrepreneur. Many of us only feel that kind of confidence and walking around and yeah, I can do this. I am good at what I do. I do have value to offer the world. We only feel that way if there's a ton of money in the bank, if we're getting awards and accolades, if clients are lined around the block in order to work with us. But the second those external circumstances shift, then we start to second guess ourselves and we're like, am I that chick, right? Am I really good at this? Am I a good coach? Am I a good business owner? Do I deserve to be here? You have to understand that mentality, it shows up on you, right? People can sense it. And so I talk about this all the time. There's a book, I feel like I've recommended this book a gazillion times. It's called The Gift of Fear by Gavin DeBecker. It was popular, I want to say in the 90s or the early 2000s, because Oprah published this book on her TV show and it was a big Oprah's book club thing. This book isn't even around mindset per se. It's actually around personal safety. It's written by an investigator and a person who does threat assessment for high net worth individuals, celebrities, et cetera, et cetera. He's got a threat assessment company. I don't know what you would call that, but we see stories sometimes of some, Hollywood starlet, somebody tried to break into their house or whatever. And so essentially those type of people would call this man's company, again, Gavin DeBecker, the author of this book, they would call his company in order to do a threat assessment to determine what steps need to be taken, if any, right? Is this just a crazed fan or is this someone who really presents a real danger? And so part of the reason why I recommend the book is because he talks about how oftentimes our gut and intuition is correct because we can pick up micro expressions on people's faces, even if we don't consciously understand why we don't trust someone, why someone feels inauthentic. The person was dressed in a suit and they were saying all the right words, but something about what they were saying I just couldn't resonate with. That is a very real thing. And so, our brains can process things at a speed so fast that our conscious mind is not even aware of what is happening, but we're just getting that gut sense that this isn't real. And so I always say this with people, especially if you're an entrepreneur, especially if you're in sales, but regardless, if you're trying to get a job and you're like, why aren't people calling me back with my resume? If you're dating and you're like, I don't understand, why I'm not getting asked out on a second date or whatever it is, you have to understand that how you see yourself, other people will see you as well, because it shows up in your demeanor, it shows up in your presence. And all of this happens in split seconds, in microseconds, and people are judging you on the other end of that transaction, whether it's a sales transaction, again, whether it's an interview, whether it's even a dating situation. They don't even know why. They're like, I'm not feeling this person, but it's because of how you are showing up. And so I harp on this, especially for new entrepreneurs, especially for new coaches, because they think, oh, the market is too crowded, or no one wants to hire me for what I have to offer, or they think it's all these other reasons, and they don't realize that it's simply the way that they are showing up. And they are showing up as not that person, right? They're showing up as, not the successful person because they're looking at their circumstances. They're like, man, it's my last bit of money in my bank account, or I haven't had a client in a whole month, or they're looking at their circumstances to give them the evidence of how they should show up. And, oh, this must be my identity. Not realizing that the true secret to success is choosing your identity from the outset. And so that is what I did very early on in my career. I mean, you guys know my story in terms of me being this like college student who had lost her college scholarship and was learning all these personal development tips for myself in order to get back on track with school. And so blogging that and started documenting that, and then all of that kind of snowballed into the coaching business that I had today. But even when I got into coaching, again, before I had a certification, I just now got my certification, right? I just finished my certification. I've been coaching online for 7 years. I grew my business to 6 and then 7 figures without any of these external things that people say they typically need. I built my business based on belief, right? Belief in myself and ability to show up as that person regardless of what my circumstances said. And so I know people are like, well, where's the, I guess, validity? Am I allowed? How do I get permission to show up as that person if all of my circumstances say that I am not that person? I'm saying you give yourself permission. That's the whole point. You choose to show up as that person based on the calling and the destiny that you know is on your life, right? I knew from a very early age that I had a gift of breaking down complex topics, that I had a gift of encouraging people, of helping people think bigger about themselves and their futures, helping people achieve various goals. Like, I was doing this at the lunch table in high school, right? When there would be all these fights in high school, you know how it is. The two people start arguing with each other, and then it's like, fight. I was the one who would literally stand on table and chairs talking to people around why they need to let this go, and this is dumb, and you're better than this, and don't you realize you have a bigger future? Is it worth risk losing whatever, that college scholarship or that GPA? Like, I literally can't not do this. Like, I've been doing this since the beginning of time. No, but I've been doing this from a very, very early age. I've always been a good public speaker. I've had natural leadership abilities, and I've been working to cultivate that. And so, I mean, that's my evidence, right? It's not so much what was going on around me, but just the person that I naturally am. I've always relied on that. And again, I've always just known that there was a calling on my life and that I had a sense of destiny. And so whatever it is that you have to pull on, I'm saying don't pull on your circumstances to give you evidence for your identity, because if you do that, your identity is going to be to and fro all the time, right? Because there's ups and downs. It doesn't matter how successful you are. I mean, right now, look at the stock market. Many of these, big companies, I'm thinking about Amazon, right? They hit a dip and they were laying off people and all these different things. Would you say that Amazon as a company still isn't a dominant player in the marketplace, that they're still not one of the biggest and best e-commerce companies in the world just because their stock has dipped? No. But imagine if all the leadership at Amazon was like, oh my goodness, our stock is dipping. We must not be the leader anymore. And they started acting as if they weren't the leader. So this is a key for leadership that a lot of people don't realize, is that you have to be able to hold your identity through the ups and downs. And how you do that is you divorce your identity from your current circumstances, from circumstances at all, right? Your identity is not rooted when you're winning, and your identity is not rooted when you're not winning, right? Your identity is rooted in who you are and what you know your destiny to be. So that was the first kind of pep talk that I was giving my friend. And I'm like, are you that chick or not, right? Are you that chick because there's money in the bank, or are you that chick because that's who you were born to be, right? There's a difference. The money goes up and down, but if your identity goes up and down with it, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where people can read it on your face that you don't really believe that you are that person. And then you have this cascading effect of negative results because you're not getting the sales and all the different things that you want to, right? So the first key is really making sure that you hold on to your identity and that you judge your identity based on the future success that you see for yourself, not based on your present circumstances. But the next thing that I was really getting on her about is recognizing that your thoughts are tools, right? Your thoughts are tools, and it's your job to use them in a way that serves you. This drives me crazy. So many people just treat their thoughts like they're a victim of their thoughts, right? Like, I don't know where this thought came from. It just randomly came in my head, and I feel like I can't control it. But now that I'm having this thought, I feel bad, right? Or I'm depressed. Here's the thing. We have to understand. Our bodies and our minds are beautifully designed. And oftentimes we think that there is something wrong with us when really our bodies and our brains are operating as designed and are doing exactly what they are supposed to do. Perfect case in point, right? I know for me, because I've been traveling a lot, I'm getting ready to travel, right? I know sometimes we could be like, oh man, my body is failing me because I'm gaining all this weight, right? I've definitely gained a pound or two while on my travels eating delicious food, right? There's nothing wrong with your body. Your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, right? Your body is designed where if you take in extra calories, it is supposed to store those extra calories as fat, right? And it stores them for in the future if you don't eat or you come across a famine, all right? Your body has resources that it's getting ready to pull from. So many people act like something is happening to them, something is wrong. I don't know what's going on. I'm gaining all this weight. Your body is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, right? You've been eating extra calories. And as a result, because your body is beautifully designed and perfectly functioning the way that it's supposed to, it's been saving those calories for you in the form of fat. That's what happens, right? Well, same thing with our mindset. Oftentimes we're like, I don't know why I feel so overwhelmed. I don't know why I feel so stressed and anxious. Your body or your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do, given the thoughts that you are feeding it. Given the thoughts that you are allowing it to have, given the thoughts that you are not capturing and redirecting and turning around, right? So if thoughts come in your head of, I'm a failure, my business is gonna fail, this was dumb, why should I ever have believed that this is something that I could achieve? I'm so stupid for going after that. Guess what? Your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do by getting in a tailspin and getting all anxious and depressed. That means your brain and your mind are working properly. There's nothing wrong with you. What's wrong is the inputs. What's wrong is you not taking those thoughts captive. And so we have to stop being subject to our thoughts and start making our thoughts serve us. And so when a thought comes in, we have to get really good at saying, wait a minute, does this thought serve me, right? You don't have to accept every thought that comes into your brain. Half the thoughts that come into your brain don't even belong to you anyway, right? If you were driving down the road and you see a billboard for, some delicious fried chicken sandwich or something like that, and you start to get hungry and you're like, oh man, that would be really good. My question is, was that really your thought? Or was that a thought that was sparked by some external stimuli that really had nothing to do with you? Do you accept this as like, yeah, I guess I'm hungry for a chicken sandwich? Or really was that thought given to you by the billboard? Exactly, this is what I'm saying. So oftentimes we receive thoughts day to day because of the different stimuli that we see, the different things that are triggering us, and we just accept those thoughts as our own. And because we're accepting those thoughts, then our brain and our mind is doing exactly what it's designed to do, and it's creating all of these feelings that are negative. It's creating, again, the overwhelm, the depression, the anxiety, et cetera, et cetera. Instead of thinking that something is wrong with you, I'm saying just give yourself different thoughts and choose to think the thoughts that will create the very feelings that you want to have. And so this is what I was asking my friend. I was like, how do you want to feel? And she's like, well, I want to feel successful. I want to feel like I'm on the right track. I want to feel like my future is bright. I want to feel like I have control over my life. And so I asked her, what thoughts would create those feelings in you, right? When you think about your current circumstance, because your current circumstance is just the facts, right? We're the ones that give meaning to it. So for instance, let's say that you haven't landed a client in a month, right? We can choose to think the thought of, this was dumb, I should have never started this business, I'm washed up, right? It's too competitive in this market, no one's ever gonna wanna work with me. And then as a consequence, those thoughts then create anxious feelings, it creates feelings of failure, of overwhelm, et cetera, right? Your brain does exactly what it's supposed to do with the thoughts that you've given it, but you're the one that assigned the meaning to that circumstance. So we can rewind and say, okay, the circumstance is I haven't had a client in a month, and we could choose to think a different thought of, oh wow, maybe God is telling me to move in a different direction. Maybe the market has shifted and this is a really great opportunity for me to do the thing that I've always wanted to do because, I've been doing my marketing one way because I thought that was the way that it would work. And now because I'm not getting clients anyway, I have a new opportunity to do something different with my business. And I've always had a gut instinct that this new way is what is going to make me successful. And then I'm going to do that instead, right? I mean, again, I'm just giving you various examples, but you can choose to look at that circumstance. In fact, this really happened to me. I remember when I was transitioning my business. I was doing a lot of one-on-one work, and I had my son. And so I was realizing like, wow, I'm not going to be able to do as much one-on-one work and maintain this client load. So I need to shift into something that is more, feasible for me to do with, a new baby, being a new mom. And so I originally went to low ticket digital products because I thought, oh, if I create these like cheap $97 ebooks, everybody is going to want to buy one and it'll be, super easy. And so I was putting out all these like $97 things, $197 things. And I was noticing that I was having a lot of difficulty making sales, and I couldn't figure out what the issue was. Now, I had not disciplined my mind initially. I was like, oh man, people aren't buying. That must mean that people are really, really broke. They really, really don't have it. I need to make my prices even lower. I need to make it $47, $27 trainings. Like, I need to lower my prices because that's how I was interpreting the information. It wasn't until I started working with my own coach, who again, first worked on my mindset before we did any like special marketing tactics. Because you see, that's what people run to, right? They stop making sales and they're like, what's a new funnel that I need to build? What's a new ad that I need to create? What's a new thing that I need to do? Not realize it might just be the way that you're interpreting the information. And so I'm so grateful that as a coach, I'm always in coaching, I'm always getting coaching. And so I worked with my coach, and she was like, maybe the reason you're not making $97 and $197 sales is because people actually want $20,000 programs from you. And I was like, stop it. There is no way. These people are saying no to $197. There is no way they're going to say yes to 20K. Are you insane? I literally thought she was crazy. And she was like, I'm telling you, people want more value from you, not less. The reason why they're saying no to these little low ticket things that you're creating is because they don't want any more low ticket trainings from you. They want in-depth, hands-on, like hardcore coaching from you, and you have people in your audience that are willing to pay a premium for it. And so because I had already paid for the coaching, and I'm like, well, I'm not gonna pay a coach and then not take their advice. At least let me try this. And don't you know, I started selling $20,000 programs like hotcakes. So this is what I'm saying. It was the same circumstances. I initially was interpreting as people don't have money, I need to lower my prices, when the opposite was actually true. People did have money, they wanted more value from me, and I actually needed to raise my prices. And so this is what I'm saying. You need to look at your circumstances and the thoughts that it is triggering. Ask yourself, do these thoughts serve me, right? Do these thoughts help me get closer to the destination that I want to get to? Or are these thoughts actually holding me back? And if the thoughts are creating confusion, they're creating anxiety, they're creating mental drama in your life, it is your job to decide, how can I think differently, right? What are the thoughts that I need to think in order to have a different outcome in my life, right? And so that goes to the next thing that I told my friend, and this helps with this, is you need to engineer your environment. And so I was like, you know what? Part of the reason why you are having your identity shift based on, all the circumstances that are happening in your life, and while you're just like accepting these thoughts and not critically looking at them, you're not choosing what you want to think in order to create better feelings for yourself, is because you're stuck in an environment that reinforces this negative identity and reinforces these negative thoughts. And so I told her, I was like, you need to change your environment. I do this all the time. If you follow me on Instagram, you see that I do my CEO lunches. So at least once a week, I take myself out to a very extravagant lunch. Oftentimes the waiter is like, ma'am, is anyone else joining you? Because you've ordered an appetizer, you've ordered a starter salad, you've got an entree, dessert, you got wine. Like, how are you putting down all this food, right? I'm a big foodie. It just is what it is. But I take myself out, right? No one else is allowed, even though my husband has crashed it on occasion, crashed my CEO lunch. But I just like to take myself out to kind of reward myself, but also to reset my environment. Part of the reason why I insist on it being an extravagant lunch is because I want to envelop myself in the type of environment that makes me feel like, you know what, my life is great. I am living the life that ultimately I dream of. And it makes it easier for me to think different thoughts about my future, for me to have a brighter future, right? If I were always stuck at home, and sometimes like, hey, my house is sometimes a mess, just being honest, right? Because I have small kids. And so they're running around, screaming in the background. There's toys everywhere. Like, even as much time as I spend making sure that my home environment is good, decorating my house, all these different things, just by virtue of being a mom of young kids and, chaos at home, sometimes even my home is not the best environment for me to have the mental kind of space that I need. So I will go out to a nice coffee shop. I will go out to that extravagant dinner or lunch. Sometimes I will even take myself out to a museum. I live in Houston. Houston has really amazing museums. Sometimes I'll just go to the park and go for a walk, but I am being very, very strategic about putting myself in environments that make me feel good, because when I feel good and I feel good about where I am, I'm engineering that environment. It makes it that much easier for me to have those positive thoughts that I can then direct towards the outcomes ultimately that I want to achieve. So ask yourself, does my environment make me feel like having the thoughts that are ultimately going to lead me to the future that I want? Or does my environment reaffirm the identity that I'm trying to let go of, right? If you are constantly telling yourself you're just an amateur, and again, it was silly for you to think that you could build this business and no one's gonna buy from you, and you're just like, whatever, ask yourself, does your environment reinforce that? And if it does reinforce that, then guess what? You need to go to a new environment. I did this even when I was working my full-time job. I used to work in Dallas, Texas, and downtown there's this beautiful hotel called the Jewel Hotel, and I worked like a few blocks away from it. And so on my lunch break, I would take my personal laptop, I would walk the few blocks to this hotel, and I would order a coffee and just sit in the lobby and do my work and really take in the ambiance. And part of the reason why I did that was because I wanted to really root the feeling of success and I love this environment, I love this space, with me doing my business work, right? Because I was working on my business on my lunch break. I didn't want to be working on my business on my lunch break, hunched up in the employee break room, because that environment just reaffirms like, oh, you're just another 9-to-5 employee. You see what I'm saying? Like the environment just reaffirms the present reality that I was trying to get out of. So I was like, no, if I'm going to be working on my business, I need to be doing it in an environment that affirms ultimately where I'm trying to go, which is I am a free entrepreneur, right? I work in beautiful places. I can travel all over the world, right? Being in a beautiful hotel on a subconscious level really connected me working my business with those dreams and with that environment by creating that atmosphere. And it was so much easier then later for me to have thoughts around, you know what? This is going to be successful. I am on the right track because I was connecting that positive environment. I was engineering that environment to the activities that I was doing for my future success. So that was the pep talk that I gave my friend. Hopefully this pep talk has been helpful to you. Again, choose your identity, right? Choose your identity not based on your present circumstances, but based on your future success. Also make sure that your thoughts are tools and that you are using those tools to create the outcomes that you want. Don't just accept any thoughts that come to you. Engineer your thoughts so that you can ultimately feel the way that you need to feel. And then of course, engineer your environment. Be deliberate about putting yourself in environments where it's easier to think the thoughts that are ultimately going to get you to where you want to go. So with that, I hope you become a master of mental discipline, because your thoughts do become things. And with that, I will see you in the next podcast episode. Bye.